The gala sparkled with crystal chandeliers and whispered secrets, but Dante Moretti barely noticed. His sharp eyes scanned the room, calculating every deal, every threat, every opportunity. To the world he was untouchable, the ruthless mafia king whose name alone made men tremble. Women had tried to tame him, to charm him, to submit, but none could satisfy the storm inside him. None, until tonight. Selene Hart stood across the room, a vision of defiance wrapped in elegance. At 22, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never bowed to anyone. Her emerald green eyes flicked over the crowd with curiosity, a small smirk playing on her lips as she overheard a businessman attempting to intimidate her father. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. She didn't fear. And that caught Dante's attention. He approached her, his presence like a shadow in the light, commanding the room without a word. "Miss Hart," he said, his voice low, dangerous, yet oddly magnetic. "I don't think we've met." Selene's eyes narrowed, not with fear but challenge. "I don't think we have," she replied, her tone steady, almost daring. For the first time in years, Dante felt a flicker of uncertainty. This woman, she wasn't intimidated. She wasn't trying to charm him. She wasn't afraid. Most women melted under his gaze. Most pleaded, cried, begged for a fragment of his attention. Selene, she met him with fire. He smiled faintly, intrigued. "You're bold," he said. "Bold enough to survive in a world that would devour someone like you. Bold enough to see people like you for what you really are," she shot back, her voice unwavering. The room seemed to fade around them. Two worlds collided, his darkness, her light, his control, her defiance. For Dante Moretti, it was a storm he hadn't expected. And for Selene Hart, it was the first time someone in the shadows looked at her and didn't blink. Tonight, nothing would remain the same. And Dante knew he wanted to see just how far she could fight back. Selene thought the gala had been the most dangerous part of her evening. She was wrong. Later that night, as she stepped into her sleek black car, a sudden shadow moved. Before she could react, strong hands gripped her arms, dragging her into a waiting van. Her heart raced, not with fear but with anger. She twisted, kicked, and shouted, but her assailants were professionals. The door slammed and the world outside vanished. When the van stopped, she was thrown into a lavish, dimly lit mansion room. Heavy curtains blocked the moonlight, and the faint scent of leather and expensive cologne filled the air. And there he was, Dante Moretti. "Miss Hart," he said, his tone calm, almost casual, as if he weren't the man who had orchestrated her kidnapping. His dark eyes scanned her, sharp and calculating. "You have a remarkable talent for defiance." Selene straightened her back, refusing to show the slightest tremor. "Do you really think kidnapping me will get you what you want?" she asked, her voice steady, daring. Dante stepped closer, his presence magnetic and threatening at once. "It's not about getting what I want," he said, his gaze lingering on her unflinching eyes. "It's about finding someone who can survive, someone who can challenge me." Selene's lips curled into a smirk, bold and unafraid. "Then you're wasting your time. I don't play the victim." A flicker of surprise crossed Dante's face. He wasn't used to this. Most women trembled, cried, begged. Not her. She was different. Dangerous, yes, but fascinating. He circled her slowly, his movements precise, almost predatory. "You will learn," he murmured, "that most women break. But perhaps you won't." Selene's defiance blazed. "Try me." Dante's lips twitched into a faint smile. Finally, a challenge. For the first time in years, the man who had conquered everything felt an unfamiliar thrill. He didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain. Selene Hart was no ordinary woman. And he intended to see just how far she could push back. Outside, the world slept. Inside, a storm was beginning, a storm that neither of them could ignore. Selene refused to sit down. She paced the room like a lioness in a cage, every step a declaration. She would not be tamed. Dante watched her from the shadows, his sharp eyes tracking her movements, calculating, intrigued. "You don't understand," he said finally, his voice low, calm, but with an edge that made the air vibrate. "Most women would beg. They would submit. You're different." Selene stopped mid-step, her green eyes flashing with defiance. "Then I guess I'm exactly what you don't want," she said, her voice steady. "I don't play your games, Dante. I don't fear you. And I certainly don't belong in your world." A slow, dark smile curved Dante's lips. "Oh, you belong somewhere. It's just, we'll see where." He circled her like a predator studying its prey, but Selene didn't falter. Every instinct screamed that she should run, scream, fight, but she stayed. And that only fascinated him more. "Why do you resist?" he asked, stepping closer. "Do you think defiance will save you?" Selene lifted her chin. "I don't need saving. And I don't need your approval." For a moment, Dante froze, caught off guard. Most women crumbled at the weight of his gaze, but Selene, she met it head-on. There was fire in her, a strength he hadn't expected. It was intoxicating and infuriating. "You're reckless," he said finally, his voice almost a growl. "And you're predictable," Selene shot back, her pulse quickening not from fear, but from the thrill of standing her ground. "I'm not scared of you. I never was." Dante's eyes darkened, a storm behind them. He had never met anyone who challenged him like this. For the first time in years, his patience was tested, and his desire, awakened not through submission but through fire, resistance, and sheer courage. He realized then that this wasn't just a game, it was a battle. A clash of wills that neither would back down from. And deep inside he knew one truth: no woman had ever stood against him like Selene Hart. And maybe that was exactly why he wanted to see how far she could go. The room was quiet except for the steady ticking of a grand clock, but the air between Selene and Dante crackled like a storm ready to break. Neither spoke at first. Words were unnecessary. This was a battle of wits, of patience, of control. Selene leaned against the heavy desk, arms crossed, her gaze unwavering. "So what now?" she asked, her voice steady, teasing even. "You've kidnapped me, you've circled me like a lion, now what?" Dante's dark eyes flicked to hers, sharp, calculating. "Now, we see how you survive," he said. "Most women beg after the first night. They cry. They surrender. You provoke me." She smirked. "Good. Because I don't intend to surrender." He took a slow step closer, his presence overwhelming, yet Selene didn't retreat. Instead, she tilted her head, studying him. "Do you always test people like this?" she asked. "Or am I special?" Dante paused, momentarily thrown by her audacity. "Special?" he repeated, almost incredulously. "No. Most people break before they even understand the rules of my world. You might actually play the game." Selene's pulse quickened, not from fear but from the thrill of standing her ground. Every word, every glance was a challenge. She knew that the more she resisted, the more he noticed her. And maybe, just maybe, that was her advantage. Dante circled the room slowly, like a predator savoring the hunt. "I've never met anyone who fights back like this," he admitted quietly, almost to himself. "It's intoxicating." Selene met his gaze, unflinching. "Good," she whispered. "Because I don't plan to lose." For the first time in years, Dante felt his control slip. Not entirely, but enough to excite and frustrate him in equal measure. Selene Hart was unlike any woman he had encountered. Bold, clever, fearless, dangerous. And that danger drew him in, even as it tested every rule he had ever lived by. The game had begun. A dangerous dance of minds, wills, and unspoken desire. Neither knew how far it would go, but both sensed one undeniable truth: this was only the beginning. Selene didn't expect to learn anything about Dante Moretti beyond the rumors. The ruthless mafia king, untouchable, unyielding. Yet tonight something felt different. She watched him from across the dimly lit room, his dark eyes shadowed with a hint of something he tried to hide: vulnerability. "You think you understand me," Dante said suddenly, his voice low, breaking the silence. "But you don't. No one ever does." Selene lifted an eyebrow, daring him to continue. "Try me," she challenged. "I'm not afraid of you, or your secrets." A flicker of surprise crossed his face. Most women would have cowered, retreated, or begged. "Selene?" She leaned in, unafraid, her green eyes like twin flames. Dante exhaled slowly, the first real trace of uncertainty he'd shown in years. "My desires," he said carefully, as if the words themselves could betray him. "No woman has ever satisfied them. They all falter. They break. They run." Selene studied him, sensing the weight behind his confession. "And you think I will?" she asked softly, more curious than defiant this time. Dante's gaze hardened, but not with anger. There was a strange respect there. "You might not," he admitted. "But you fight. You challenge. That's new. It's dangerous. It's necessary." Selene's pulse quickened, not with fear but with understanding. Behind the cold, commanding exterior was a man shaped by power, loss, and walls built so high that no one had ever breached them. And yet, somehow he allowed her a glimpse. She took a careful step closer. "Maybe you just haven't met the right woman," she whispered. Dante's eyes narrowed, the shadows of his past flickering across his features. He wasn't used to being seen. Not really. Not like this. And for the first time in years he felt exposed, and oddly alive. The air between them thickened, charged with tension and unspoken truths. The rules of their game were shifting, quietly, dangerously. Selene realized something important. This man, feared by all, was vulnerable in ways few would ever witness. And Dante realized another truth: she wasn't like the rest. And perhaps, that was exactly why he couldn't look away. Selene had learned something crucial. Dante Moretti, for all his power, could be challenged. And she intended to prove it. That morning, she woke to the sprawling, luxurious room that had become her temporary prison. Dante was there, watching her silently from the shadows, his dark eyes calculating, waiting for her to falter. But Selene didn't. Not today. "I have a suggestion," she said, stepping forward boldly. "If you want control, you're going to have to earn it." Dante's lips twitched, a half smile, half amusement. "Is that so?" he asked, intrigued. "And what makes you think you have the right to lecture me?" Selene didn't back down. "Because I've observed you. You respect strength. You respect courage. And I have plenty of both. So if you want to see who's really in control, you'll follow my rules for once." Dante's brow furrowed, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. Most women would cower, beg, or cry. She was different. Bull. Unyielding. Dangerous in ways that excited him more than he cared to admit. "Fine," he said finally, his voice low, measured. "I'll play your game. But know this, every move you make I'm watching." Selene smirked. "Good. Then we'll see who breaks first." Over the next hours, the battle shifted. Selene used her wits to outmaneuver Dante in small ways, predicting his routines, questioning his decisions, and subtly asserting herself. Each victory, though minor, was a crack in his armor. And Dante, for the first time in years, felt a thrilling tension he couldn't ignore. He had always been the hunter. Now, for the first time, he realized that he might be the prey. By nightfall, the air between them was electric, dangerous, intoxicating, charged with unspoken desire and mutual respect. Dante realized he wasn't just intrigued by her resistance. He was fascinated. Obsessed even. Selene, on the other hand, felt a mix of fear, excitement, and triumph. She had survived her first real test, and for the first time she sensed that she wasn't entirely at his mercy. The turning point was clear. The game had changed. And neither of them would ever be the same again. The quiet of the mansion was shattered by the shrill ring of Dante's phone. A new threat loomed. Rival factions had discovered his latest business move, and their retaliation was swift and brutal. Selene froze for a split second, then her mind clicked into action. "We need a plan," she said, her voice steady, authoritative. "Hiding won't work. You need to counterattack before they strike." Dante stared at her, measuring the fire in her eyes. Most women would panic. Most would freeze. Selene, she analyzed, strategized, and demanded action. His admiration grew, unspoken but undeniable. "You're bold," he said almost grudgingly. "But this isn't just a game anymore. It's dangerous." "I know the risk," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "And I'm ready. Are you?" For the first time, Dante considered her not as a challenge to his control, but as an ally, someone capable, fearless, and clever. Together, they began coordinating strategies, moving pieces across the shadowy board of his empire. Selene's insights surprised him. She saw angles he had missed, potential threats he had dismissed. Hours passed like minutes. The tension between them was electric, charged with unspoken desire and mutual respect. Each decision they made together built trust, hesitant, fragile, but real. At one point, Dante caught her glance lingering on him. "You're not like the others," he muttered, almost to himself. "You see me, not just the empire, not just the reputation. You see me." Selene's pulse quickened, but she didn't falter. "I see the man behind the mask," she whispered. "And he's not as untouchable as he thinks." Dante felt a rush, a mixture of admiration, desire, and something he hadn't allowed himself in years: vulnerability. For the first time, he realized that maybe survival wasn't about domination or fear. It could also be about partnership. By dawn, the immediate threat was neutralized. They had survived, together. And in that survival, something shifted. A bond had formed, delicate but undeniable, between the ruthless mafia king and the woman who refused to be broken. The storm outside had passed, but the storm inside them was only just beginning. The mansion was quiet now, but the tension between Dante and Selene was electric, thick enough to feel with every breath. After the night of danger and strategy, something had shifted. The walls between them, carefully built from pride and defiance, were beginning to crack. Dante stood near the grand window, gazing out at the city lights, but Selene's voice drew him back. "You don't have to pretend with me," she said softly. "Not here. Not now." He turned, meeting her gaze. There was a vulnerability in her eyes, one that matched the storm he'd hidden for years behind his cold exterior. For the first time he felt exposed, not to an enemy but to her. He started, hesitating for the first time in a long time. "No woman has ever challenged me like you. Most, they surrender, they break, or they leave. You," his voice caught uncharacteristically. "You're different. You make me feel things I've long buried." Selene's pulse quickened. "Feel?" she whispered. "Dante, what do you mean?" He stepped closer, the intensity in his dark eyes pulling her in. "I mean that I've spent years controlling everything, my empire, my life, my desires. And yet, with you I can't control myself. I can't predict you. I want you. More than I've ever wanted anyone." Selene's breath caught, but she held his gaze. "I'm not afraid of you," she said quietly, letting the truth slip between them. "I'm drawn to you, even if it terrifies me." For a long moment, silence hung in the air, heavy and intimate. Dante's usual composure faltered, replaced by raw honesty, a rare glimpse into the man behind the empire. Then, almost imperceptibly, the tension shifted. The unspoken desire between them became undeniable, charged with mutual respect, attraction, and an understanding that neither had expected to find. "I don't know what this will mean," Dante murmured, his voice low, rough with emotion. "But I can't turn away." Selene smiled, small but genuine, letting herself feel what she had long resisted. "Then maybe we face it together." And in that moment, the line between challenge and connection blurred, marking the beginning of something neither could ignore, and neither would ever forget. The city slept, unaware of the danger creeping closer to Dante's empire. From the shadows, rival factions were moving, fast, organized, deadly. For once, Dante wasn't facing this alone. Selene stood beside him, sharp, focused, and ready. "They're planning an attack tonight," she said, scanning the surveillance feed with unnerving precision. "If we don't act first, they'll take everything, your empire, your people, maybe even us." Dante's eyes narrowed, but there was a spark of admiration hidden beneath the intensity. "And you think you can stop them?" he asked, his voice low, almost teasing. "I know I can," she replied, her confidence unwavering. "But I can't do it alone. You need to trust me." For a long moment, Dante studied her. Most would have faltered under the pressure, but Selene was different, calculating, fearless, and clever. Finally he nodded. "All right. We do it your way." The next hours were a blur of precision and tension. Selene moved through the mansion like a strategist, directing Dante and his enforcers, coordinating diversions, and neutralizing threats before they could strike. Dante followed her lead, letting her intelligence guide his ruthless instinct for the first time in years. At one point she looked up at him, green eyes fierce yet vulnerable. "This is it," she said. "Follow my signal and we move." Dante's chest tightened, not from fear but from awe. He had never seen anyone, any woman, command him this way. Yet the thought didn't frighten him. It thrilled him. When the final threat appeared, they moved as one, seamlessly combining strategy and skill. Selene's plan worked flawlessly, and the enemy was defeated without a single casualty on their side. As the adrenaline faded, Dante caught her gaze and something unspoken passed between them, a mixture of respect, relief, and desire. "You were incredible," he admitted, his voice low, rough with emotion. Selene smiled, a small triumphant curve of her lips. "We made a good team," she replied. For the first time, Dante realized that trust could be intoxicating, and dangerous in ways even he hadn't anticipated. Together they had survived. Together they had become unstoppable. And in that realization, the bond between them solidified, stronger than fear, stronger than desire, stronger than the storm they had weathered. The aftermath of the battle left the mansion quiet, but the air between Dante and Selene was anything but calm. The storm outside had passed, yet the storm within them raged, raw, unrestrained, undeniable. Dante watched Selene move through the room with that same fierce confidence that had first drawn him in. She was no longer just the girl he had kidnapped. She had become his equal in every sense. Clever, unyielding, fearless, and utterly unforgettable. "You've changed things," he said quietly, stepping closer, the intensity in his dark eyes matching the electricity in the air. "Most women bend. Most women break. You, his voice caught rare vulnerability threading through it. You've made me see differently. Selene met his gaze, steady, unafraid. I never wanted to bend, she whispered. I just wanted you to see me as I am. And maybe see yourself as more than you think you are. Dante's lips curved into a faint, rare smile. I think I've finally learned the rules. The rules? Selene asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, he admitted, closing the distance between them. The game isn't about control or fear anymore. It's about respect and trust. About seeing strength where others see weakness. Selene's pulse quickened, not from fear but from the intensity of the moment. And desire? She asked softly, a playful glint in her eyes. Dante's gaze darkened with unspoken longing. That is inevitable, he murmured, letting the truth linger in the space between them. Because you are unlike anyone I've ever known. And I won't turn away. For the first time they both allowed themselves to truly see each other. Not as captor and captive. Not as predator and prey. But as equals, partners in fire, defiance and desire. The mansion, once a place of tension and fear, now held a fragile peace, built on mutual respect, trust and the thrilling unpredictability of two strong wills colliding. Dante reached for her hand, a rare gesture of intimacy and equality. Then, let's face this world together, he said. Selene smiled, her green eyes alight with courage and warmth. Together, she agreed. And in that moment, the Mafia king who feared no one finally found someone who could challenge him, satisfy him and stand beside him, not beneath him. The rules had changed. And neither of them would ever be the same again.